Hello, everybody. Welcome to Geezerology on YouTube. It's July the 4th, and we have a birthday to celebrate. Happy birthday, Dan.
Hey,
Got
thank you,
your nice
Scott.
little birthday clothes on, your birthday outfit on there.
That's right. Birthday suit. Why not?
Your birthday suit
I,
on
I
there.
pull it out once a year.
Yeah. I was gonna do this whole thing on your birthday. I wanted to go back and check to see what has happened on this day, and I got nothing.
Well,
Dan
you got a
Oliver
book
was
in a
born
movie.
on July 4th. I can't find anything else.
Well, you got a book in a movie about you born on the 4th of July.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Happy
And are you a real
Independence
live?
Day.
Are you a real live Yankee Doodle dandy?
I don't know. I guess in some ways, yeah, yeah. I'll believe me. Still like to hear the fireworks and cake and have cake. So that's part of it. And no longer going to take part in parades, but I've done a few parades, years gone back, but that was always associated with Air Force Reserve. So, but it was good.
I'll let you in on a little secret. Our whole life, Dee has been about a half an orbit ahead of me around the sun, and and I'm happy to report that that's still the case.
Yes, yes.
He's maintaining his distance.
Surprise! Yeah, glad to be around still after all these years. I didn't think I'd make it, but combination. I think just dumb luck and yeah, probably that. Yeah.
Dee's almost exactly a half an orbit ahead of me, and then I am a full orbit in one day ahead of Bob. That's how it works out here.
So I feel kind of privileged to be the youngster of the group.
And I'm the troublesome middle child, right?
Boy, did you ever speak the truth there.
By the way, Bob, Merry Christmas up there in Michigan.
Thank you.
And your temporary digs up there in Michigan. You're in a different time zone, I guess.
Yeah, I'm actually equal to you now. We're on Eastern time up here.
So, Bob, are you on the Upper Peninsula?
No, we're down in the Lower Peninsula right now. Right now, I'm in Grand Rapids.
Oh, okay.
And then later tonight, we're going to be moving further up north to Cadillac, and then the plans are later on the week that we will go up into the UP.
Okay, so today we're going to get a little bit patriotic as far as our music appreciation goes. Today we're going to talk about John Cougar Mellencamp's album Scarecrow. Specifically, Dee suggested this one because of this track ROCK in the USA, which is from this album, which I guess was a hit number two on the charts for at this time. He was John Cougar Mellencamp. He hadn't quite gone to John Mellencamp yet. He was still holding on to the Cougar name. But before we discuss Scarecrow, Bob, is there anything in the news that you want to talk about real quick?
Yeah, I got a few things that I stumbled across that I thought might be of some interest. And since I'm up here in Michigan on vacation, and I'm coming from the basement of my brother-in-law's home, I thought it would be appropriate to start out with something that is actually related to Michigan. And this is and it appears that the Nuge has an election conspiracy that he has been sharing with people, and it involves why he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Ted Nugent believes that he's been excluded from that because he's on the board of the National Rifle Association, and also because he's anti-dope. So he doesn't fit in with the standards of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he says, quoting him, "Because I'm on the board of the directors of the NRA and I'm anti-dope, hates the NRA and doesn't think you should be able to defend yourself, and they're all on dope. That's it in a nutshell. But you know what? even as I'm responding, I'm not angry and I'm not hurt. I don't take it personally. So to prove that he's not angry and he's not taking it personally, he went on to say, how dare you call it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when you have the gods of musical geniuses like Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and then you put in Patti Smith, Grandmaster Flash, ABBA, but not Ted Nugent. You just lost all credibility. So no, Ted's not upset about any of this. Grave of Chuck Berry by putting in Grandmaster Flash. It's just indecent. It's dishonest. It's sacrilegious, I believe. And then he went on. There's so many gods of thunder in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that the honesty is so compromised by their throwing a bone to their fellow dopers. That's all it is. They put Patti Smith in because they all got high with her. So Patti Smith, created an entire subgenre of rock music, but he thinks that she got in there because she smokes dope. And so I would say this to Ted, when one of your signature songs is Wang Tang Poon Tang, I'm not certain if you're Hall of Fame material.
Yeah, I've got nothing to say about Ted Nugent. I don't even like to waste my time even thinking about this guy.
I know, but I just thought it was kind of interesting what he was saying.
All I can say on that is many, many moons ago, I went with a friend, and it was a concert at Q Auditorium in St. Louis. The headlining band was Canned Heat, and the middle band was Ted Nugent. And I forget who the opening was. It was somebody mutual to Scott and I believe, but it was kind of, we were there to see Canned Heat, the old blues group. But anyway, I'll just.
Yeah, I remember seeing him as an opening act to somebody. I don't remember if I went to a Canned Heat concert, if that was the same show, but yeah, I mean, it's back in 72 or 71, something like that. And it was okay. I mean, he was an okay opening act. I remember he was pretty flamboyant. And I mean, he was pretty good, but I've been over Ted Nugent for years.
About 5-6 years ago, I saw him on a tour package with Styx and REO Speedwagon. He was the opening act. And I'll just say this, I don't blush easily, but he's got to be the most foul-mouthed individual I have ever heard in my life. And I had to listen to all his rants and rages and stuff. And yeah, he's just not that good. So, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting little thing about him claiming that he's not hurt or upset about it, but then turning around and saying that he is hurt and upset.
All right.
Anyway, moving on, got a little trivia item here. You guys may already know this. I didn't, but the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sgt. Pepper is actually based on a real life person. And here's when they were on tour in North America back in 1966. And they did a swing through Canada, and they were assigned a troop of Ontario provincial police officers to protect them while they were in Canada. And the team was led by a man named Sergeant Randy Pepper. And it seems that years after this, Pepper's granddaughter claimed that she explained how the OPP, according to her, it seems that he kept them out of some sort of trouble while they were in Canada. And she didn't clarify what that trouble was, but apparently it was significant enough that the band thought highly of him. So when they went to record the album, they named it Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in honor of this police officer. And then the other thing that they did was McCartney sewed an Ontario Provincial Police badge onto the left arm of the jumpsuit that he wore on the album cover. So anyway, I thought that was a little interesting trivia piece that I had not heard of before. So
it is.
Yeah, that was a new one to me.
I was not aware of that, but it wouldn't surprise me, the way the Lennon and McCartney incorporated, certain life experiences and turned them into songs, or concepts.
Yeah, they drew inspiration from a lot of things like that. Just
Oh, yeah.
little things that they read in the newspapers or saw on TV or whatever. Yeah.
So,
And then lastly, ironically, I find myself circling back to another KISS item. And first, these boys have been in the news a lot lately, and they're doing a lot of self-promotion. But this is another interview with Gene Simmons. And I thought it was just kind of interesting. Simmons has warned fans that they must be vaccinated to come see the band's End of the Road tour. Quoting Simmons, "I don't care if you think the earth is flat, okay, you're going to be vaccinated." And he started out the interview talking about what he considers to be the band's incredible legacy. And he said, "We were four knuckleheads off the streets of New York who weren't qualified to do anything. We created what is arguably the most recognized four faces on planet Earth." And obviously, Mr. Simmons does not have a problem with keeping his ego in check. And he said, "You may not be able to tell us who was on Mount Rushmore. Some people have said Elvis. Nope. You may not be able to tell us who the king and queen of Sweden is, but everybody in Sweden knows who KISS is." Let's see. Then he went on further. Let's see. Says, "I don't care what you believe. You ain't getting into the shows if you're not safe. You're not going to risk somebody else's life because you think the earth is flat. I don't care what you believe. I want everybody to be safe." And as much as I don't like KISS, I give Simmons props for taking that stand. So anyway, I just had a few items this week since I've been on vacation and traveling, but those are the ones I wanted to throw out.
Gene Simmons will always be Gene Simmons. I have no problem with Gene Simmons. I find him kind of entertaining.
yeah, I mean, he's very upfront about what they tried to do and accomplish. They were mediocre talent, but great marketers, and they combined it.
Absolutely.
And
he's done a very good job.
yeah,
Well, they're on this End of the Road tour, and it seems like every time I turn around, I find some news story quoting something coming out of Simmons.
Right.
So yeah,
sure.
he's a genius at marketing.
Sure. Yeah. He's never been lacking in his ability to find a microphone.
Yeah. Absolutely. Give him props for that. And
Yeah.
I kind of liked his statement about the vaccine and stuff, and contrast that to what the stuff that Clapton's been pushing and Van Morrison. So I thought it was kind of refreshing to see him.
Not only in our political discourse, but also in our in the music industry, that seems to be a polarizing issue.
Yeah, very much so.
Very polarized these days, in all aspects. Okay, Scarecrow is John Cougar Mellencamp's. It's his second album as John Cougar Mellencamp. It was his 8th album overall, released on August the 5th of 1985. A couple of hit singles on there. ROCK in the USA, as mentioned, hit number 2. Lonely Old Night hit number 6. The song Small Town also hit number 6. And this album is on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest albums of the 1980s. I don't know if I don't see any mention here of whether it's on their list of the greatest albums of all time. I suspect not, or else it would have been mentioned here. But it got excellent reviews all around. It was very well received back in the day. This was probably the peak of his career. This is 1985. This probably was the toppermost of the poppermost for John Cougar. Everything built up to Scarecrow, and then after Scarecrow, he's still around. He's still recording, but that seemed to be the peak. Okay, Dee, this is your album you wanted to have a talk about, so take it away.
Okay, thank you. When I decided to revisit this particular LP, I had to listen to it 3 times. I should have listened to it more to really dig down into it. But then I realized I bought it many years ago when it came out, and then yeah, it's a commercial and critical success. As you said, made #2 on Billboard charts. 5 singles were released. The way I got it was Small Town, Lonely Old Night, ROCK in the USA, and what's the other one? I'm losing my brain on the Scarecrow. But I think for John Cougar, it was his, I don't know, it was his Sgt. Pepper album in a way. I think he really reached out and dug down what was important to him. And of course, that was, he was celebrating really his upbringing and where he's from, the rural Midwest, raised on a farm, darn proud of it. And, but in this one though, I think he looked definitely through the magnifying glass, and this was the first LP that he really got, socially, put some socially commentary in there. I think as a whole, he embraced all the values he was raised with, it growing up on the farm, hard work, going to church, having fun and all that. But he saw what was happening to his own family and people in the small town. And then of course that gave birth to Scarecrow, and which is a pretty, that kicks off the album, and I think that sets the tone for it. A lot of the family farms were being lost for a variety of reasons, and he addressed it. And musically, what I've read a little bit, and I have to agree that their sound with his band at that time, they stuck with they did not use any synthesizers, did not use any mechanical drum. They were just kind of a hard edge, I guess, similar to the Stones, the way they used their musicality with it. And I don't think there's a weak song on this LP myself. He may have, it wasn't an intentional concept album, but that sure, to me, that's how it comes out. And probably, yes, ROCK in the USA did reach #2 on the charts. It's the most upbeat, optimistic song on it. And I was familiar with, or at least heard of all the artists that he mentions on it. And so it's a nice little tribute to his musical influences. And I think he just wanted to pay tribute to that, even though he did grow up in a small town. Now, some of the songs besides Scarecrow, Between a Laugh and a Tear, I thought that was a pretty strong song. And on that one, I believe Ricky Lee Jones did a duo vocal with him on that one.
Yes, yes.
And it kind of reminded me a little bit of like an adult version of his earlier hit, Jack and Diane. And so the songs were introspective, and really, I think just as genuine as you can get. At the same time, it comes across he is, definitely mistrusting of obviously, big politics and big business, because that's what happened to a lot of the family farms. And I think I've read in one snippet of an interview, and I have to agree with it, that it was, he became sort of the voice of the working class, at least for the Midwest. Bruce Springsteen, he was more urban and spoke for the East Coast. And Mellencamp, he was Midwest. In fact, I think this LP was recorded in Indiana at his own studio.
Belmont,
So,
Indiana. Yep.
yeah. So with that, I don't think, as I said, there's not a bad song on the album. There's a couple a couple songs that are, as I say, my favorite. I think Between a Laugh and a Tear, and then the title song. I think it was just real hard hitting, but right from the gut, and that's my overview take on it. I don't want to get too deep at this time.
Bob.
Yeah. Well, I know that Cougar started out, the record company gave him the name Johnny Cougar, and he recorded stuff under that. And I wasn't really aware of any of that. I got turned on to John Mellencamp when he released Jack and Diane, which I always thought was a great song and really reflected growing up, in a small town. Scarecrow really resonates with me because I was born on a farm, and that my grandfather had bought in 1929. My dad sold the farm when I was 6 or 7 years old, and we moved into the town. And back in the early 90s, the farm came back into my family because the son of a cousin of mine bought it. And it was a 200-acre farm, and I got a chance to go down and visit them. And they were telling me about how much they had to pay for the place. And I was stunned at how much it went for. And it still had the old house that was there from 1929 and stuff. And they couldn't make a living on it. And he and his wife both had full-time jobs outside and then worked the farm, in their part-time, just because of how much he had to pay for the land and stuff. So Scarecrow really resonated with me because, I understood personally the plight of family farms, and how everything is turned, to corporate. And having grown up, in a small town, and I was the little town that was next Naylor, where I was born, was once a vibrant little farming community. Now you go there and it's a ghost town. And I know that then place I call really my hometown, Poplar Bluff, its downtown has died and decayed and stuff. So I know what's happening to the small cities. And so I think Cougar captured that greatly with Scarecrow. And then I agree with Dan. It's got solid songs all over the album, and ROCK in the USA is a great tribute, to the early days of rock and roll and all of that. So yeah, I love the album. I like John Mellencamp. I know that later on he dropped the Cougar. He tried to get away from Johnny Cougar, so he became John Cougar Mellencamp, and then later on he dropped the Cougar and just became John Mellencamp, once he established his own identity. So yeah, I like Mellencamp's music, and he is a very genuine Midwesterner, and I think he speaks to a lot of good values.
Yeah, this album just I see it as this is definitely an album that is a product of its time, without question to me. Just to put it in perspective, I mean, this album was Cougar was making a name for himself. Literally, because his name was evolving at this time, from as we pointed out, started out as Johnny Cougar, then he became John Cougar, and then he became John Cougar Mellencamp, and then later he became John Mellencamp. But anyway, that aside, this coincided with Mellencamp's he worked with Willie Nelson and with Neil Young to organize Farm Aid.
Yeah.
And this album was released in August of 1985, and the first Farm Aid concert was in September of 1985. Also in the Farm Aid was in Champaign, Illinois. I'm not real familiar with the geography of Illinois, but I don't know if Champaign and Belmont, Indiana are relatively close or not. I'm not real sure. Well, in the grand scheme of things, that's pretty much the same part of the country. Anyway, the point being is that all this kind of came together for Mellencamp at the time. His Scarecrow album, The Farm Aid, and all this also happened at the same time where these big charity concerts were all over the place. It was around the same time as Live Aid, around the same time as Amnesty International, and all that stuff. So, so this definitely was the success of this album. Definitely was part of the mood and the atmosphere of what was happening in mainstream music at the time. Like Bob, I got into Cougar with Jack and Diane. What was that album that Jack and Diane was on? American Fool. American
Yes.
Fool.
Yeah.
And which was a couple of albums before this. And the same thing. I heard that song Jack and Diane on the radio or saw it on MTV or something. And I just thought, man, what a great song that was. And I bought the American Fool album, which was, as I remember, was a very front-loaded album. I remember the first 3 songs on that album were just killer. Let me go back and see if I can
Those
find
Little
that
Pink
real quick.
Houses on that album too.
No,
That was another song I really liked.
that was a different album. American Fool started out with these 3 tracks: "Hurt So Good," which was a hit for him; "Jack and Diane," which is the song that got me interested, and then track 3 was "A Hand to Hold On To," which was also a hit for him. But then tracks 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 were basically just filler. I mean, that album was so heavily front loaded, and I'm reading that that Mellencamp says the same thing, that was really his breakthrough album after he had done a couple albums as Johnny Cougar, and then he became John Cougar and released this album and had the 3 big hit songs. Or 3 hit songs and then a bunch of filler. Mellencamp has the same reaction to, review of that album that I had. That beyond those first 3 tracks, there wasn't much to like there. And then he recorded a couple more albums. Eventually, get into Scarecrow, which was, like I say, the pinnacle of his career. I had never listened to another Mellencamp album after American Fool. Of course, I've heard all the songs. He had a lot of hits over the years, and I always thought, well, one of these days I'll listen to a John Mellencamp album, and Dee gave me the opportunity to do so. And I listened to this album for the first time this week. Within the last couple of weeks, I've given it a spin a few times over the course of the past couple of weeks, and it's okay. It's fine. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm not a rural guy. To me, it's pretty solid rock album, heartland rock album. But the reason why I will never go back to this album is that, again, this is an album of its time, which includes that crystal clear, sleek, sterile production values. And especially you can hear it in the drums, because it just on the drums, it sounds like it's just banging a couple of like metal wrenches together. Boom, 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 boom. There's no depth to it. It's just like floats over the top, and that stuff drives me crazy. That has nothing to do with John Cougar Mellencamp and his music and his songs and everything like that. That's the production value of the time. All albums, any album I go back and listen to from this period, they all sound like that, and it just it hurts my ears. and it's hard to listen to them. A couple of U2 albums I've tried to listen to from back then that I remember fondly, and now I listen to them and they just they hurt my ears because of the way that they were produced. And it was the dawn of the CD age, and I think the whole idea was to make them sound good on CD, to make them just sound really crisp and clean. And to me, it just takes all the life out of it. There's just no depth to the sound. Again,
Yeah.
that's that is my criticism of this album, is the sound of it, not the music, not the lyrics, not not the artistic value of it, but it's just the I hate the way that they produced music back in those days, and this is a perfect example of that, and it makes it tough for me to listen to.
That's an interesting perspective. I had not picked up on that, so I'm going to have to go back. I bought the album when it came out and listened to it extensively, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to it again to see if I pick up on the same thing. But now that you mention it, there is a difference in production value between like Jack and Diane and this album. Now that I think about it,
Jack and Diane was a 70. It had a more. I don't remember. There was a few years before, but it sounds more like a 70s album. This sounds like an 80s album, and the sound of 80s albums, it's I can't take it anymore. It used to be fine. I used to be fine with it, but now I go back and listen to it, and I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, you talk about how they either adjusted for the percussion and the drums in the 80s, and I think of Phil Collins.
Right.
His stuff is the same way, and maybe the drummer for Mellencamp at the time, who was Kenny Aronoff, maybe they were trying to, Phil Collins is doing it, we've got to stay up with it. I didn't find it.
Well, it became the defining sound of that era, and
Tears for Fears, another one.
It's not synthesized like you were pointing out. They don't use synthesizers here. They don't use, everything. All the music is organic. All the instrumentation is organic. The production of it and the way that they made it sound is not organic.
Well, I have to ask though, was Scarecrow actually released on CD? Because I bought it on vinyl.
I bought it on vinyl too. I've got it stowed away.
Oh, of course. Everything by 1985, pretty much everything was coming out on CD. Now the CDs, a lot of time I do recall that the CDs would come out like the LP would be released the vinyl LP would be released on a certain day, and that was still the prevailing format for published music was a vinyl LP. The CD would generally trail by a couple or 3 or 4 weeks. And if you also recall that always the CDs at this time would always have an extra bonus track on them, which kind of always became a selling point for the CDs. And a lot of times there were tracks.
Well, that was to try to get you to spend the ungodly amount of money they wanted for CDs back then.
It probably so. It was a little extra bonus, and in some cases it was a case where it was stuff that they recorded for the album and they wanted to get it on the album, but because of the time limitations on a vinyl, they couldn't fit it in. But I know on this one, the bonus track was the acoustic version of Small Town, which is at the end of this album now, which is a official part of the album now. At least that's when I listen to the album on streaming, that's on there. Actually, the original LP, I'm looking, ROCK in the USA was the closing track on the vinyl LP, and there were 2 bonus tracks that followed that: The Kind of Fella I Am and the acoustic version of Small Town were not actually on the original vinyl. But that's typical of product that came out in this time. I have no problem with it. You get used to it, but I do find it kind of jarring though to hear all of a sudden an acoustic version of Small Town, because it just seems to me like something was tacked on at the end, which it was.
I can't imagine. Well, yeah, I could see Small Town acoustic maybe.
I don't have a big problem with it, but now it's not so much anymore, because now the CD versions and now the streaming versions of albums are actually the album now, the official album now. Or back in the day, it was just stuff tacked on at the end, and you go back and listen to those things now, and it seems like it. I'm not saying the songs are good or bad or anything like that, but in the flow of the album, they're obviously tacked on at the end.
I wonder, and I don't know if this is the case or not, but back in the day when they would do an initial vinyl release and follow up with a CD, were the vinyl and CD versions mixed differently?
No, generally not. No, generally not. It was just the CD versions were the same masters from the LP, but digitally reproduced. Now that there might have been some subtle differences in the digital transfer of the analog tapes, which might explain some of that. The way I hear that now.
Yeah. Because
now, I mean, most of us, I mean, there's a community of vinyls making a comeback, but I haven't been on that. I'm still listening to my music by streaming, so I'm not listening to it by vinyl. But that could explain why that bothers me so now, because maybe it does sound a little bit different now than it did when I listened to the vinyl, and not intentionally, but just technologically, that's what would happen when you transfer it digitally. It could be, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds really intentionally digital, as opposed to the warmth of analog.
Mhm.
And I hear that when I listen to these mid 80s albums now. And that's kind of the point I was making. And I find it tough to listen to, because I can't get past that, the sound of it. It's just too harsh. It's too harsh for my ears. Anything?
Just a couple of trivia notes. I had to do this. There was one other notable guest musician on this album. He played slide guitar, was Ry Cooder on The Kind of Fellow I Am.
Yes.
That, not a big deal. And so John Mellencamp has sold approximately 40 million LPs worldwide. He's had 22 top 40 hits in the US. And he has recorded 25 LPs. And the word or at least what I came across was, last year during the pandemic, he recorded quite a number of songs in his studio. And apparently there's, something going to come out. Don't know when, but he's been recording and.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's I'm just looking at his discography. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I count 23. The most recent one being Sad Clowns and Hillbillies in 2017. It looks like his last 3 or 4 albums, there have been like 3 and 4 year gaps there. So yeah, this would not be unexpected if he were to come out with an album about, sometime pretty soon, because that would seem to kind of follow his time gaps for in the last few of them, 4 years.
So yeah, so I think I have one parting comment,
Uh-huh.
and kind of backing up with something that Dan said earlier, Mellencamp does appear to be the genuine article. You know, he sings about small town life,
Yeah.
but he actually lives it. And I believe he's from Seymour, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's where he still lives. You know, so even though he's a rock star with probably who knows how much money, you know, he's still living in a small town in Indiana. And so I at least give him credit for, you know, if he sings about a small town, he's living that life. And I think, you know, there are so many people in the country realm, you know, that sing about small towns and all that kind of stuff, but, you know, they're actually living in a big mansion in a city somewhere. So, you know, he is at least does appear to be the genuine article.
Doesn't he have a,
Now, you know, he may own an island somewhere I don't know about, but you know,
well, I was going to say, yeah, he's living that small town life and everything, but I'm not sure who he was married to, but I know for a time he was dating Christy Brinkley. And,
do you
and,
blame
and
him?
according to Billy Joel, you know, she's not a small town girl.
No, apparently she has a thing for rock and roll musicians, I guess.
Isn't he married to somebody famous now? Like,
I don't know. I know he's.
I keep wanting to say Daryl Hannah, but I think
Oh,
Daryl Hannah was
no.
Neil
Sarah
Young.
Hannah, she married
Yeah.
Neil Young.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
artistically, I think some of these songs you could.
Meg Ryan.
Oh, he's
Meg
married to Meg
Ryan.
Ryan.
They're not married, but they were. Oh no, they were a couple. They never got married, but they split up in October 2019. They were engaged to be married, but they ended their engagement 2 years ago. Yeah,
And
I thought of that when you talked about how he's the real deal, living the small town rural life.
Well, you know, you got to admire a small town boy who can.
I've always, you know, even though I've never been a fan of John Cougar Mellencamp. That's not to say that I dislike John Cougar Mellencamp. I just never went there, except for the one quick stab with American Fool. But you know, I've always known about him, been aware with him, and I've always had the impression that he's a genuine article. You know, he's not just some he's not just a poser out there. You know.
yeah, I mean, the guy.
I mean, his work comes from his heart. You know, I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and which is, you know,
Oh,
sort of unlike a lot of the modern country stars. You know, they go to Nashville and maybe, you know, sing about, you know, their pickup truck and their dog, but
Right.
they probably never owned a pickup truck.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that gives you an impression that it's manufactured and it's all, you know, but I have never gotten that impression about John Cougar Mellencamp. I've always thought he was a genuine article.
Well, I am.
It's just an article that has never really been in my wheelhouse.
Well, I would say that I was a fan of his music during this period. And I know I have American Fool, I've got Scarecrow, and I can't remember I think I've got 3 or 4 of his albums from this period. And then he kind of drifted off my radar, you know, so I'm not familiar with his later material. But during this period, I was definitely a fan.
Yeah, likewise. I just had the one Scarecrow album and was really thrilled with it, but I didn't follow up with him much later. Apparently, a couple LPs that he released, I can't think of the name, but in 2007, they've gotten critical, you know, they've gotten some positive critical reviews. I don't know what the sales were, but and there's a rumor they may do another Farm Aid with Neil Young. I don't know about Willie Nelson, but I don't know how his health is.
Well, there have been, I mean, Farm Aid wasn't just a one-shot deal. I mean, it was, I don't know if it was an annual event, but I know that there have been several.
He did a 30th.
80, there was one in 85, 86, 87, 89, 90, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97. Well, there've been a lot of them. And yeah, it looks like it's every year or 2 or 3 years, they have another one.
You know, and I think that speaks a lot for him and the other artists that you know, they do that.
Well, apparently apparently it's been a successful thing. I mean, this concert format. Oh, well, they actually had one in April of last year, but it got severely curtailed and changed because of the pandemic. That's all I see. I don't see any details on what that was, but yeah, 2019, 18, 17, it seems like it's been an annual event for a while. Yeah, Willie Nelson and Neil Young and Mellencamp were all involved with it last year. So they're probably planning another one for later this fall. They seem to happen about September or October every year. A couple of Mellencamp's kids are involved in it too. Tanya Tucker, Margot Price, Lucas Nelson, Bonnie Raitt, Nathaniel Rateliff, and the Night Sweats, Jamie Johnson, Margot Price. Okay, anything else on John Cougar or Scarecrow or Farm Aid or any of this before we wrap it up?
I think I'm good.
ROCK
Okay.
in the USA.
D, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, America. Merry Christmas, Bob.
Hey man, it's Michigan. You know, it's winter and summer.
Yeah. Celebrate Christmas and grab that thing behind you and iron your shirt when we're done. Right?
It's a basement storage room that I'm in. What can I say?
Come on back next week. We're going to continue our patriotic discussions. We're going to talk about Neil Young's Freedom next week with the song that featured the song. What's the name of the song from Freedom?
Rockin' in the Free World.
Rockin' in the Free
Keep on
World.
rockin' in the free world.
There you go. There's another one. There's 2 versions of Rockin' in the Free World on Neil Young's album Freedom. That's something that Neil Young did a lot. He did that with Hey Hey My My, but anyway, that's what we're going to discuss next week. The following week, we're going to hit Let It Be by the Beatles and talk a little bit about the Peter Jackson film that's coming up. So anyway, that's coming up. Check us out at Geezerology.com. Like us, subscribe to us, give us some comments if you would. We'd appreciate hearing from everybody. In the meantime, happy Independence Day, everybody. See you next week.
All right. Bye now.